Mr. Chair. Please join me in welcoming today's senior speaker, Elliott Wakefield.
Last year, Max Brodsky's talked in his senior speech about how he knew that when he left Gilman and went to college, he would miss Gilman for the little day-to-day moments, the mundane things that seem so regular and familiar at school. He knew he would miss all the ordinary moments, like passing teachers in the hallway, going to assembly, standing in the lunch line, cramming for quizzes before class, or driving home every day. I had a similar experience last year when I was suspended from school for 8 days. In and of itself, the whole ordeal was extremely painful. And part of that was because I found that I actually missed the regularity of the school week. While I was away from school, I realized that I missed staying up late finishing reading assignments. I missed rushing from my first period Bryn Mawr class over to my second period class on the third floor of Cary Hall and squeezing through the door just before the bell would ring. I missed taking down notes of what teachers said too quickly to capture on paper. And I missed spending that extra hour at school for intrams. I missed waiting to be picked up after school, standing in the lunch line, or going to assembly. I found that these little sentimental moments got to be so heartbreaking after I'd been separated from them because they were so genuine and normal and comforting. Getting suspended stung terribly. I hated to perpetuate our class's already less than stellar reputation. This is the class that during freshman year shattered the record for detentions in a year by the third quarter. And we've had problems with our maturity dating back to our lower school days, where we would chronically have football taken away as an activity at recess because of how rough it got. And as a side note, and not to jinx anything, I'd like to say that I'm proud that we've kept it together so far this year, guys. But the whole ordeal... But the whole ordeal of getting suspended was extremely painful, as I was separated from a place that I'd put so much of myself into with everything I do at school besides just academics. I felt a bit abandoned, cast aside, unwanted, and negatively highlighted before the entire community. And I'm sorry for everything. It was a mess for everyone involved. The whole experience was pretty miserable and embarrassing. While being questioned by peers, family, friends, the administrators, the student leadership, and our advisors, the 3 days I spent wondering about my punishment were impossibly long, bleary, and numb. It was not all terrible, though. One of the coolest things to happen as a result of my suspension was learning how much support I had from the people at Gilman. I had so many kids come up to me and tell me that if I needed anything, they had my back. And my teachers were really accommodating and understanding and made the time I was away from school as easy as possible for me. I could call classmates at night and talk with them for 20 or 30 minutes about the class I missed that day. And they would talk to me about what we went over in class, what to pay special attention to, and what the quiz was on. I was always sure to say thanks so much to the guy I called at the end of our conversation, but it really did mean the world to me that these guys were willing to take time out of their busy nights of studying and homework to help me out. I don't think many students are ever completely comfortable around teachers, simply because they are authority figures and people we as students respect a tremendous deal. I remember one night I was home from school during my suspension, and I'd been staring at the same pre-calculus homework for about 20 minutes and couldn't understand it. And this is understandable because I had missed the previous 2 or 3 classes when I was out of school. And books do a decent job of explaining the subject matter, but there's really no replacement for a teacher. So that night, after staring at the book and back at the same couple of homework questions for about 20 minutes, I called Mr. Guline, my pre-calc teacher at home. I've had plenty of teachers tell the class on the first day of school to feel free to call their house if they were confused or struggling with something. Or had a question, but I'd never really done this. Teachers have responsibilities and quizzes and papers and tests to grade, and so I always felt like actually calling a teacher at home would be somewhat intrusive and awkward. But when Mr. Guline picked up the phone, he sounded so happy to hear from me and was incredibly understanding and was more than willing to help me through the homework questions I had difficulty with. He took time out of his night at home to talk with me for 20 minutes and explain the homework to me. He asked me how I was doing and told me that if there was any way that he could help in the future to let me know, or to let him know. And I didn't say it then, but that simple act of kindness meant so much to me, Mr. Gu. When I think of a Gilman teacher, that phone call to Mr. Guline is exactly what I think about. This dedication to students, this deep care for them, and this amazing willingness to help them out just because teachers love what they do. This year on our senior retreat, I was really fortunate to spend some time talking with and getting to know Austin Days. And Austin, I'm sorry if I embarrass you with this, but bear with me. On the retreat, Austin talked about why Gilman has meant so much to him. And every single person in the room could tell how much Austin meant what he was saying. And everyone could tell how much of his heart and soul is in Gilman, and has been in Gilman this year and the years in high school that he's been at Gilman. I asked him what made our school so special to him, and he got choked up giving a response. A day later, he told me that he had thought about my question. Why do you love Gilman so much? What makes it so special to you? He said that in thinking about it, he tried to give me an answer, but the only thing he came up with was one bullet point, containing simply one word: people. He told me that it was the people that made Gilman what it was, and that without the people here, it would just be another school. We could have all the smart boards or laptops or books in the world, but nothing would ever be as meaningful as it is without the people here at Gilman. And I know it's talked a lot about here, but I want you guys sitting in the audience to know that Gilman is a family, and that there are people, teachers, advisors, coaches, friends, who will do anything for you simply because you're a Gilman boy. And when you mess up, you find out just how many people care about you and how many people will go to great lengths to help you out. And this goes back to what Austin was talking about people. The fact that we are all so cared about and supported, whether we know it or not, is one of the reasons I'm so incredibly happy to have gone here. This year, I briefly discussed my suspension in a short homework assignment for Mr. Christian's Dante class. Later that day, I passed Mr. Christian outside on that pathway between the turf and the athletic buildings, so we stopped and talked for a couple minutes. He told me that he thought my homework was well written and well thought out, and thanked me for reading it aloud in class. And then he told me something that has really stuck with me this year. It was a really great moment when he told me this. It was still early September, and it was bright and crisp and sunny and clear outside. And it was one of those moments that makes you feel really lucky to go to a place like Gilman. There's a philosopher and a writer named Sam Keene that Mr. Christian often talks about. And on that day outside in early September, he told me that Sam Keene says this: "Your past just disappeared. Now what?" Know that in the end, things have a really cool way of just sorting themselves out. We as people are incredibly resilient and can be incredibly strong. I want you to take away from this the idea that everything really does pass with time, and you can learn to move on. Sam Keene essentially says that the ball is thrown back into your court every time, and you're always given a second chance. So in closing, I want you all to know that getting suspended is not the end of the world, in part because of what Sam Keene says. And strangely, getting suspended has helped me in the long run. It's definitely not something that I'd recommend or wish upon any of you, but it has for me been a learning experience. It's provided a chance for a reflection, and it's helped me grow up. And I now know that it is when you are most vulnerable that you learn just how many people care about you. The experience convinced me that there are second chances in life. Just make sure you take advantage of them when you get them. Finally, I'd like to say that I've never been more proud to be a member of the class of 2011 than this year. And as much as I'm ready to get out of Baltimore next year, I'll miss all you guys next year. I think that all this stuff we've gone through has actually made us closer as a class, as we've rallied around each other and picked each other up when we've been down. Thank you.